China, the land of mind-blowing numbers, bizarre realities, and goose patrols? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the country where over 35 million people live in cave homes. The government uses armies of geese to patrol its borders. A single standard time zone stretches across a land almost as big as the United States, meaning in some towns, the sun rises at 10 a.m. 1.4 billion people are jam-packed into the eastern half of the country, while the west is basically just mountains, deserts, and the occasional high-speed train. And no, Hong Kong and Macau aren't countries, but they aren't quite China either. We'll explain that mess in a future episode. This is China, a place of jaw-dropping scale, extreme contrasts, and fascinating oddities the rest of the world rarely gets to see. Let's dive into the stunning numbers and strange truths behind the world's most populated nation. China is huge, like really huge. At 9.6 million square kilometers, it's the fourth largest country on Earth, right behind Russia, Canada, and the United States. But unlike the United States, which spans 6 time zones, China only uses one, Beijing time, for the entire country. Why? Back in 1949, Chairman Mao decided that the entire country, from the sunrises in Tibet to the sunsets in Shanghai, would follow a single time, Beijing time. The idea was to promote national unity, streamline government operations, and basically make things less confusing. Sounds efficient, right? Well, maybe for the government. But for regular folks? In some parts of Western China, the sun doesn't rise until 10 a.m., and kids go to school in the dark. It's like living in a sci-fi movie where the clock says morning but the sky says midnight. And although China is massive, almost 94% of its 1.4 billion people are squished into the eastern 43% of the land. Why? Because the West is basically a brutal no-go zone, thanks to the Himalayas, the Gobi Desert, and the Tibetan Plateau. These regions are so dry and harsh that they rank among the most uninhabitable places on Earth. But that hasn't stopped the Chinese government from building high-speed trains through deserts, planting forests to fight desertification, and even trying to encourage people to move to remote borderlands. Yeah, more on those mega projects in the next video. Meanwhile, in the heartland of northern China, millions of people have chosen to live underground. No joke, about 35 million Chinese people live in caves, and not because they're hiding. These are called yaodong, traditional cave dwellings carved into low-S hills, especially in Shanxi province. The soil there is soft and easy to dig, and the caves are surprisingly energy efficient, cool in summer, warm in winter. The best part? Many cave homes have electricity, furniture, and internet. It's like Hobbiton, but with more rice and fewer wizards. The government isn't kicking people out. In fact, they're preserving and upgrading these homes to make them more livable, especially for the elderly, who prefer them over concrete high-rises. Next up in our journey through China, a land full of mind-bending contrasts and unbelievable facts. In most countries, dogs are man's best friend, and border patrols too. But in some parts of China, the front line of defense isn't a dog. It's geese. Yes, geese. Turns out, geese aren't just noisy birds at the park. These feathered guards have incredible hearing and are way more alert to strange sounds and unfamiliar faces than dogs. When something's off, they honk like crazy. And that honking has actually helped Chinese border officers catch illegal border crossers. In fact, some patrol units officially consist of 2 geese, 1 dog, and 2 local residents. Who needs high-tech sensors when you have hyper-vigilant geese? Now, let's clear up one question a lot of people still ask. Are Hong Kong and Macau actually part of China? The short answer? Yes, but not in the way you might think. Hong Kong is officially known as the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China. It was a British colony from 1841 until 1997. That's 156 years under British rule. When it was handed back to China, it didn't fully merge with the mainland. Instead, it operated under a principle called One Country, Two Systems. That means Hong Kong kept its own currency, the Hong Kong dollar, its own legal system, and a high degree of political and cultural autonomy. So yes, it's part of China, but it runs like its own mini-country in many ways. Macau has a similar story, but with a Portuguese twist. The Ming Dynasty first allowed the Portuguese to lease Macau in 1557 as a trading post. Portugal paid rent and ran the territory under Chinese sovereignty until 1887. when they signed a treaty giving Portugal permanent colonial rights. That lasted until 1999, when China took it back. Today, Macau is also a special administrative region, and yes, it follows the same one country, two systems setup. Fun fact, Macau's casino industry is over 7 times bigger than Las Vegas. That's right, 7 times. If Vegas is the king of casinos, Macau is the empire. Here's where things get a little complicated. As the world's factory, China has completely changed how the world views intellectual property, for better or worse. Whether you like it or not, businesses across the globe are being forced to adapt. In China, ideas move faster than factories. Sometimes before you even finish building your production line, someone over there is already selling your invention, or at least a carbon copy of it. Just ask Yekutiel Sherman, an entrepreneur from Israel. His company spent over a year developing a clever little gadget, a phone case that unfolds into a selfie stick. He poured time, money, and creativity into it. Even made a slick commercial featuring a couple taking the perfect selfie in front of the Eiffel Tower. But just 1 week after launching the product, he found near-identical versions flooding AliExpress, sold by vendors across China. They looked exactly the same, only they were selling for $10 compared to the $47 Sherman hoped to charge. Nowadays, startups everywhere are learning a tough truth. Someone in China can clone your original idea almost instantly, and companies around the world are realizing they need to prepare for that reality, or get left behind. Some people argue that copying is part of progress, that everyone copies everyone else. But when it comes to weapons, that logic doesn't quite convince the West. Look at fighter jets, tanks, or rifles from countries like the United Kingdom, Russia, Germany, India, South Korea, or the United States. They all work using similar principles. Sure, but they don't look alike. For instance, Russia's Sukhoi T-50 looks nothing like America's F-22 or F-35. Israel's Galil rifle is clearly not an M16 clone. They all shoot, fly, or roll the same way, but their designs, shapes, and engineering demands are unique. Now compare that to China. Chinese weapons, aircraft, and engines often look like mirror images of American or Russian gear. Take these examples. The United States M16 versus China's Norinco CQ. They're practically twins. China's Shenyang WS-10B jet engine reportedly reuses over 80% of parts from the American F-101. The MQ-9 Reaper drone? Meet its Chinese cousin, the Wing-Lung 2. You tell me, twins or what? And look at the United States C-17 Globemaster III versus China's Y-20 military transport plane. Another case of separated at birth? Even Israel's Lavi fighter and China's J-10 look suspiciously like brothers from different mothers. Coincidence? Maybe, but a lot of people, especially in the West, aren't buying it. Here's a wild one for you. Between 2011 and 2013, China used more cement than the United States did during the entire 20th century. Let that sink in. In just 3 years, China consumed 6.6 billion tons of cement. The United States? Over a span of 100 years, from 1901 to 2000, used only 4.5 billion tons. Now, considering the two countries have relatively comparable-sized economies, that kind of gap feels almost impossible. So why did China pour so much concrete in such a short time? Well, experts point to 3 main reasons. First, population size. In 2012, China had about 1.35 billion people. Compare that to the United States, which had around 166 million on average throughout the 20th century. That's nearly 8 times the population. More people, more buildings, more cement. Second, how the cement is used. In the United States, about 75% of cement goes into residential construction, where wood and steel are often used for the frame. Cement is mostly for the foundation. But in China, with so many people in so little space, high-rise apartments are the norm. And those buildings are entirely built from concrete. Foundations, support beams, walls, everything. They pour concrete like it's water. Third, where each country is in its development phase. Throughout the 20th century, infrastructure and construction made up about 10 to 20% of the United States economy. But in China, the years 2011 to 2013 were a time of rapid urban expansion, a nationwide building boom fueled by fast-track urbanization. By the end of 2024, China had built over 48,000 kilometers, that's nearly 30,000 miles, of high-speed rail, accounting for more than 70% of the world's total. That's 14 times more than the second-place country, Spain, which has just 3,400 kilometers. In short, China isn't just building, it's rewriting the record books. And it's not just concrete and railways. The country has been exporting innovation for thousands of years. Take silk, for example. That luxurious fabric dates all the way back to around 2696 BCE. It was so valuable that anyone caught leaking the secret of how it was made or smuggling silkworms was executed. That's how the Silk Road got its name? Because silk was China's crown jewel, and they protected it with their lives. Ever heard the phrase, "all pandas belong to China"? Well, it's true. Pandas are native to China and only live in mountainous regions of Sichuan, Shanxi, and Gansu provinces. If you see a giant panda in a zoo outside of China, it's there on loan. China technically owns nearly every single panda on Earth, and they're leased out to other countries under strict agreements. Most loans last for 10 years, and any baby pandas born abroad still belong to China and must eventually return home. The United States got a front-row seat to panda diplomacy with the beloved panda family Tian, Meixiang, and Xiaoqiji, who recently left the Smithsonian National Zoo after 23 years of extended agreements. China often uses panda diplomacy to build closer ties with other nations. And as of now, 23 countries have pandas on loan from Beijing. And yes, there's a price tag. The Smithsonian paid $500,000 annually for panda conservation, while Zoo Atlanta has shelled out over $16 million since 1999. But pandas are just the beginning. China is also the undisputed king of shopping malls, with around 4,600 malls, 4 times more than the United States, accounting for nearly half of all malls worldwide. And when it comes to tech, nearly 70% of the world's smartphones are made in China. Major brands like Apple, Samsung, Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, and Huawei all manufacture their devices there. Now let's talk pork, literally. China consumes nearly half of the world's pork supply, about 55 million tons a year, 5 times more than the United States, and double the entire EU. To keep up with demand, China imports huge amounts of animal feed, including over 25 million tons of soybeans annually, making up more than half the global soybean trade. Feeling hungry yet? China is also KFC's biggest fan. Out of 30,000 plus KFCs globally, more than 10,000 are in China. That's over 1/3 of the chain's global footprint. The United States? Only about 4,000. And with that many meals, you'll need some chopsticks. China uses around 80 billion disposable chopsticks a year, enough to cover Central Park 8 times over. That's about 25 million trees or bamboo stalks cut down annually just for chopsticks. It doesn't stop there. Instant noodles? China slurps down 45 billion packets a year, about 40% of the global total. Beer? China tops the world with 45.7 billion liters consumed annually, double that of the United States, and 5 times Germany. Even your socks might come from China. 1 in 3 pairs globally are made in Datang, a town in Jiuji known as Sock City. And let's not forget electric vehicles. In 2017, China produced 99% of the world's electric buses and trucks. While that number has dropped due to EV growth elsewhere, China still made 70% of the world's EVs by 2024. Finally, every year during Lunar New Year, China hosts the largest human migration on the planet. During the 2025 Spring Festival, January 14th to February 22nd, a record-breaking 902 billion trips were made as people crisscrossed the country to reunite with family or enjoy the holidays. It's not just a celebration, it's a logistical marvel. And just when you thought China couldn't get any weirder, welcome to the Kingdom of the Little People, a real-life theme park where everyone is under 4'3". Located near Kunming, this place looks like something out of a fairy tale, with mushroom-shaped houses, colorful costumes, and daily performances featuring dancers dressed as angels, elves, knights, and princesses, all of them little people. Supporters say the park gives job opportunities to those who normally struggle to find work. But critics argue it turns a medical condition into a circus act. Either way, only in China, right? Oh, and if you're thinking about Googling it, good luck. In China, sites like Facebook, Twitter, now X, Google, YouTube, and Snapchat are completely banned. Instead, China has built its own online universe with apps like WeChat, an all-in-one super app, Weibo, China's Twitter, Douyin, China's TikTok, Baidu, the local Google, and streaming platforms like Youku and Iqiyi. It's like a parallel digital world. Same functions, all made in China. And before we go, here's one final jaw-dropper. The deadliest earthquake in recorded history happened in China back in 1556. It killed over 30,000 people. Let that sink in. So there you have it. A China full of surprises, panda rentals, chopsticks longer than New York Central Park, and a fairy tale theme park for little people. If you enjoyed this wild ride through China's strangest facts, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you won't miss the next episode of Wait, That's a Real Thing? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, where we'll unlock even more unbelievable facts from around the world.